Hello and welcome to part 16 of the Neytiri grammar course. Today we will start the conjunctions sub-series. We will have 3 parts about these. In the first part we will talk about the so-called F-words and some similar words, so basically about F-words and friends. Important, before you listen to this video, you should definitely know how subclauses with R work, so stuff like nantang ataron, the nantang that hunts, and you should have a very good understanding of case endings. So I would highly recommend that if you have problems with one of these 2 topics, first continue studying them, and when you practice them a lot and know them for sure, then you can come back and learn about F-words, because F-words are based on these 2 things. But let's jump in. Before we start with F-words, let's first look at a very important thing, namely the question, why do we actually need these F-words? And also maybe what are these F-words, what are we talking about? With F-words in the community we usually mean these 5 words, foi, futa, fula, fura and furia. So if someone talks about F-words in the community, we don't mean any evil words. We mean these 5 words. So why do we need these? Let's talk about noun slots. What do I mean with that? Each verb has kind of slots that can be filled with a noun. So for example, sunu has 2 noun slots. We have one example sentence here, weru sunu siulang. To me, the flower is likable. So basically we have one slot for the ru ending, to whom is something likable, so that slot is filled with the person who likes something. And we have a slot without any case ending, the cases slot I called it here. In this case we have the siulang in there, what is likable. Or another example with the verb neo, if we use it as a normal transitive verb and not as a modal verb, then we have also 2 different slots. First of all, the L slot, who wants something, in this case Pol, neo Pol siulangit, so he wants the flower, who wants something, he. And we have a T slot, what is wanted, in this case the siulangit, because he wants a flower. We can modify the noun that goes into the noun slot, and that's something very important for today. So let's compare a few sentences. So first the sentence we already had, weru sunu siulang, to me the flower is likable. We filled 2 different nouns in our noun slot. In the first one we filled the pronoun oe, and because it's the ru slot it gets the ru ending. And in the second one, in the cases one, we filled the siulang, the thing that is likable, the subject in this case. But we can modify these nouns, so we can fill in bigger things into these noun slots. Example, weru sunu siulang alor. To me, the beautiful flower is likable. It still fits into the noun slot. Weru sunu siulang tsaewile. To me, the flower of that plant is likable. Or a very big example, weru sunu siulang apau tsatseng. To me, the flower that grows there is likable. So, what do we see here? Noun slots can be filled with any noun phrase, not only with a noun. What's the difference? A noun would be only siulang, but a noun phrase is a noun plus everything that describes the noun or belongs to the noun basically. This can be, like in the second sentence, just an adjective. That can be a genitive, like siulang tsaewile, the flower of that plant. It can be a whole subclause, siulang apau tsatseng. As long as the core of it is the noun, we can fill it into a noun slot. What cannot go in a noun slot? Everything that's not in the core a noun. So verbs cannot go in there. I cannot say weru sunu hahau, I like to sleep. One note here, if you have watched already all the videos about infix or have learned about infix before, there is of course an infix that in combination with te makes it into a noun. So I could say weru sunu tehu sahau. So if I change hahau into tehu sahau, it means the action of sleep, which would be a noun. So I could fill in this in the noun slot. I like the action of sleeping. But we will not talk about this today, but instead about another solution. But simply hahau cannot go in there. So weru sunu hahau is wrong. Full clauses can also not go in there. So weru sunu yom teluti is not right for I like eating teilu, because yom teluti is not a noun phrase. it's a verb phrase. Adjectives, adverbs, anything that doesn't include a noun is a core part. So, Weho sunu sitsan, I like good. I mean, that doesn't make any sense in English either. Like, it doesn't make sense to say I like and then having an adjective there. So, I put it there with a question mark. But just to know, these can also not go into noun slots because they're obviously not a noun. The solution we have here is foi. Solution for what? With solution, I mean how we can put verbs and full clauses in there. Because sometimes we want to say stuff like I like to sleep or I like eating teilu. That's valid sentences in English and we want to express them in that we do. So we use foi. Like I showed before, this is not valid. But remember, we can put in nouns with subclauses. Remember the sentence Weru sunu siulang apau tsatseng. So what we do is we fill in a dummy noun, feu, and then put the verb we want as a subclause. So, weru sunu feu ahahau. Literally, that means I like this thing that to sleep. So, I like to sleep. I like that thing that is to sleep. I like sleeping. And feu a can be shortened to foi. It means exactly the same, it's just a shortened version. And we can do it with the other example we had too. So, weru sunu foi yom teilud. I like to eat teilu. That's the short version of weru sunu feu a yom teilud. I like to eat teilu. So all we basically did is we took the thing that we cannot put into a noun slot, our verb phrase, and we put it into a subclause. That subclause we put onto a noun, onto a dummy noun that doesn't really have a meaning in this case. Like we don't really need it for a meaning. We just needed to basically put it into a noun shape and get it into the noun slot. Let's look at some more examples involving foi. Foi satnokur srungsi tranten. Helping the mother is important. Literally, this thing which is helping the mother is important. Wayet intin lu foi stetne fayoangit. My profession is, this thing that is, to catch fish. Lam wer foi bolukanunit an. To me appears this thing which is, he is very smart. Boholum luke foi satnok Tsyili. He left without this thing that is, his mother noticed. So in all these cases, the foi replaces a subject noun. So for example, the first sentence, foi satnokur srungsi tranten. I could also say something like satnok tranten. The mother is important. So tranten has a noun slot for a noun without a case. And if we want to replace that caseless noun with a whole clause, like helping the mother, then we just use foi to put that clause onto it and get it into the sentence, into the noun slot. Same for wayet intin lu foi stetni fayoangit. Lu can have two caseless nouns, and one of them here is replaced by foi. Same for lam wer foi and poholum luke foi satnok Tsyili, because luke is net position. Net position is followed by a noun, or it goes behind the noun. And this noun that belongs to an position also gets no case ending, so we can just replace it by foi, which also has no case ending because it comes from feu a, and then put our subclause there. So why are there 5 different F words? If you have listened in the last 40 seconds, then you should probably know it already. There are different cases. So we just looked at a lot of examples where the thing we want to put into a noun slot is actually the subject of the clause. And sometimes we also want to do that with other case endings. So we have feu a, which becomes foi, we already saw it one. If we want to replace a noun in a T slot, then we can put futa, which comes from feut a. We have fula from feul a. We have fura from feur a. And we have furia from feuri a. Let's look at some examples of each of them and start with futa. Welfbil futa ngakanulu. I think this thing which is, you are intelligent. I think that you are intelligent. Why do we need futa here? What you think is the direct object. So what do I think? That you are intelligent. So we need futa because fil is a transitive verb. Well omum futa nga figem soli. I know this thing, which is you did this. I know that you did this. Again, what we know gets the T ending because it's a direct object. So we need futa here. Let's next look at some examples with fula. This one is not very often used, but let's look at it anyway. Fula nga fitseng tok weti e kefu nitram. This thing, which is you are here, makes me feel happy. Or, in shorter or better English, that you are here makes me feel happy. You will see fula mostly with the egg infix, e kefu, from efu to feel, so egg efu to cause to feel. There are not many other cases where you can use fula. There are of course some cases, but the most often you really see it with egg. So why do we need fula here? Because what causes you to feel a way? That you are here. So it's the subject, it's the thing that causes us to feel. So we need fula. Weti wo linkap fula po jaune luer. It occurred to me this thing which is I love her. Why do we need fula here? The thing that occurs to someone is the subject. So what does occur to me? That I love her. So the subclause here needs to be into the L slot. So we need fula to put it in there. Fura is the newest one we have actually. We only got it I think 2 or 3 years ago. Hasei soli fura pamresi oe. I finished this thing that is to write. I finished writing. The thing we finish with hasei si is the indirect object. So we need fura. Remember, all C verbs are intransitive. So we cannot say hasei soli futa pamresi. That's wrong. Because with C verbs it just doesn't work. C verbs are always intransitive. Fe upare kangaisi fura posayao. This message confirms this thing which is he will come. This message confirms that he will come. The thing being confirmed again is in the indirect object, so we need fura again. And lastly, let's look at some examples of furia. Furia ne englese pamrelsivi werut oalivu. Regarding this thing which is I read in English, forgive me. So, in kinda better sounding English, forgive me that I write in English. The thing we are sorry for is an topical, and because of this we need furia. Compared to a sentence like Fisk aungeri werut oalivu. Regarding that idiot, I am sorry. So the thing we are sorry for, usually if it's a noun, also gets the ri ending or iri ending. And since we here have a whole clause that we are sorry for, we need furia. Furia put ene natvi naufwe tsiek solene nivume. Regarding this thing which is speaking natvi fluently, Jake had to learn. So Jake had to learn to speak natvi fluently. And here is the same reasoning again. The thing we learn usually is in topical. Probably you know the sentence Fieri de natvi o enume, I learned the natvi language. Or regarding the natvi language, I gain knowledge. And since we here again have a sentence with nume and we learning about something, but the thing we learn is more than a noun, it's a whole clause. So we need an effort to get it into a noun slot. So we use furia. Let's look at flexible word order. Flexible word order should be familiar to you at this point, so we can switch around a lot in the natvi language, and we can actually do the same with F words. Like a normal noun, F words can be moved within their clause. So you see, basically the main clause here is well bil futa, and the futa can be moved anywhere within that clause. So I can also say well futa ngakanulu fbil, or futa ngakanulu well fbil. And both still mean the same. I think that you are intelligent. But remember that if you move the F word within the clause, then of course you also have to move the subclause together with it. You maybe remember it from the lesson about subclause with R. You can move the noun it belongs to wherever you want in the clause it belongs to, but you always need to also move the subclause together with it. What happens if we want to have the subclause in front of the F word? Because I mean, with normal subclause with R, that's possible. We can just put the R in front of the noun, right? We don't have basically other way around F words. Then we have to break them apart again, and we can do stuff like nga kanulu, a feut welf bill. So our food doesn't exist as one single word. We have to break apart the F word to its origin again, and then put the a in front of the feut, and then we can place the subclause in front of the F word. Yeah, like I said, it's very important that you understand how subclause with a work here, because then this is probably very easy to grasp for you, because it's the same principle. The a is in between the noun it describes, so the feut, and the subclause, nga kanulu. And of course, in Furia, you could also write welf bil feut a nga kanulu. So that was it basically about F words, but let's look at some similar words. First of all, so-called tsa words. Very likely, you already know the syllable tsa. We have feu, this thing, and we have tsa'u, that thing. So tsa can also go in front of any noun and means then that. And we also have a full set of tsa words. So tsa'u-a becomes tsawa, tsa'ud-a becomes tsata, tsa'ul-a becomes tsada, tsa'ur-a becomes tsara, and tsa'uri-a becomes tsaria. These can be used instead of F words. We don't have that much information about when we can use them. Very likely we can use them in most cases, but we can, for example, use them to show contrast. One example of that: well neo futa fo kive, se satnokil neo tsata fo ive aun. I want them to go, well neo futa fo kive, but mother wants them to stay, se satnokil neo tsata fo ive aun. So I want this, but my mother wants that. So we build a contrast here. And that's something that these tsa words can be very useful for, to distinguish feu from tsa'u, this from that. And you see, futa, by the way, can be shortened to fta in colloquial speech, and tsata can be shortened to tsta. That usually is not written out, it's only said. There are also a few similar words that works the same. With certain verbs, we just don't use futa. With pilte, we use phailuta. Phailuta comes from phaile ut a, so these words which are. So one example, pilte pol phailuta or neokive. She said, I want to go, or she said that she wants to go. Of course, we can also use the intransitive approach here with san and sik, so polt epo san or neokive sik, but phailuta is always an option too. With kim, which means to command, we use tsonta, which comes from tsonit a, so the obligation which is. One example, satnokil evengur kim tsonta ftia. The mother commands the child to study, or the mother commands the child the obligation to study. And lastly, we can have reported speech with peng, to tell, or staum, to hear. And there we can use fmaunta, from fmaunit a, the news which is. One example, stolaum wel fmaunta for neo hivum. I heard they want to leave, or literally, I heard the news which is they want to leave. And one last thing are Teynga and friends. They are used for indirect questions. So if you have indirect questions, then you use Teynga and similar words instead of F words. What's the indirect question? Let's look at some English examples. I don't know if he will come. I don't care when we start. It doesn't matter where we meet. I don't understand why he did it. What do these sentences have in common? They basically have a question included. There is a question hidden in there, but it is a normal sentence. So if we have a question embedded in a normal sentence, then we have an indirect question. We have three of these words. First of all, we have Teynga, Teynga. Teynga, peseng ut asai, ketsranten. It doesn't matter where we meet. Literally, this means the answer, which is where do we meet, is not of importance. We have the engel a, which becomes Teynga. Teynga, pelun poza kemsoli, weti ve minkap. The answer, which is why did he do this, occurred to me. Here we have the same reasoning like we had before fula. So what did occur to us? Yeah, why he did that. So it's the subject of a transitive verb, vinkap. And because we have an indirect question here, why did he do that? We use Teynga instead of Furia. And last example with Teynga from Teynga. Wolin wel Teynga Neytiri ke pesengne. I asked where Neytiri was going. Literally, this means I requested the answer, which is Neytiri went where? So wien is a transitive verb to request. And since the thing we request is an answer here, or the indirect question, where is Neytiri going? We need Teynga instead of futa. We don't know if Teynga, so with the ri ending with the topical, or Teynga with the ru ending exist. We don't have any official confirmation of that. Because of this, I don't have them listed here and don't show any examples because, like I said, we don't have any official examples. So at this point, we don't know about them. If we get any information about that or any clarification, I will put it in a comment under the video. And that was it. I hope this was helpful for you. If you have any questions, like always, you can write them under the video in the comment, or you can contact me on Discord. Hi, yellow, I'm a frappo.